everyone, my name is Christina and I'm the Education Coordinator with the DuPage County Farm Bureau. I'm super excited today because I'm going to take you on a behind-the-scenes tour of my family's grain harvest. Now we're here in Illinois and it's mid-October, so we're in the middle of corn and soybean harvest. So we're going to show you some behind-the-scenes looks at the machinery that we use to harvest our corn and some of the equipment and storage that we use. So let's take a look. So the type of corn that we grow on our farm is called field corn or dent corn. And this type of corn is different from the sweet corn or popcorn that you would grow to eat as a vegetable or a snack. This type of corn is used to make things like animal feed, ethanol that we mix with our gasoline to reduce emissions, and industrial products like starches and sweeteners that are used to make things like cereal and soda and things like that. So this corn behind me, it was planted last spring and it's been growing all summer long. And now that it's fall, it's time for it to be harvested. Now you may notice that these stalks, they look like they're dead. They're all dried out. Well, we have to actually wait for the corn to get to this point. If we were to harvest the corn with too much moisture, the kernels will get moldy and go bad while they're in storage. And we don't want that. Now each one of these stalks, they grow to be about 10 foot to 12 foot high, and they usually grow 1 to 2 ears of corn. Now you may notice that these ears, they're wrapped in a husk and they have silks. Now these silks are actually pollinated in the summertime. The pollen is stored in the tassels, which is the top part of the corn, and the pollen will fall down onto the silks. And for each one of these silks that's pollinated, it will grow a kernel. These kernels are what we want to keep when we harvest it. They're these hard yellow pieces of the corn. There's about 800 kernels on an average ear of corn. So let's take a look and see how we actually get these plants out of the ground. All right, so we are out here in our cornfield and you can see this big machine behind me. This is called a combine harvester. Now we use combines to harvest crops like corn and soybeans and wheat. And the way that we do this is we have to change the head on them. So if you look towards the front of the machine, this front part right here, this is called the head. Right now it's got a corn head on it that we're going to use to harvest the corn. If we were going to harvest something else like soybeans or wheat, we'd have to change the head. So I think we should get a bird's eye view and go inside the combine and see what it looks like to actually harvest the corn. So let's check it out. All right, so we are inside the combine right now, and you can see the head moving through the field, and it's actually cutting the corn stalks. Now, as the corn moves through the combine, it's actually separating the kernels from the rest of the plant, like the stalks and leaves and cobs. The only part we want to keep is the kernels, and they're being stored in a big grain tank. Now, you can see all of the controls in our combine. We have our steering wheel, our control panel for the throttle and movement, and a screen up here that is measuring our yield. Now, a yield is how many bushels of corn we're getting per acre. An acre, remember, is about the size of a football field, and a bushel of corn weighs about 56 pounds. So in this field, it's showing that we're getting about 218 bushels per acre. All right, so once our combine's grain tank is full, we have to stop and unload our corn. If we don't stop to unload the corn, then our tank is going to overflow and our corn will spill out all over the ground. So we have here our gravity flow wagon. That's what we're going to unload the corn into. The corn is in the back of the combine in a grain tank, and it's going to move through this side piece up here called the auger, and it gets loaded into the wagon. So once the wagon is full, we'll pull it with a tractor over to our grain bins and unload the corn into the bins. So this structure behind me, this is called a grain bin. And this is where we're going to store our corn kernels once they've been harvested. Now you can see on this one side, there's a big fan on the side of the bin. This fan is going to run all year round to help keep the corn dry. And on this side of the bin, we have a ladder, and we can actually climb up and see how full our bin is getting. We don't want to overfill our bin because it could spill out the top and fall to the ground. So we have to check and see how much corn is actually in it. Now the way that we unload our corn, we pull up our gravity flow wagon and open the side up. And the corn is going to flow out into the hopper of the auger, and the auger is actually going to pull it all the way up to the top of the bin and dump it inside. This is a field that we finished harvesting. Now you can see all the parts of the corn, like the cob and leaves and stalks, that were blown out the back of the combine and are back in the field. And you can also see some pieces of the stalk sticking up out of the ground. When the combine is harvesting, it actually cuts the stalks and the roots stay in the ground. So we're going to leave those stalks and roots in the field, and it's going to help keep our soil from eroding. We're also going to plant a cover crop of rye in the field. And cover crops help reduce soil erosion and put nutrients back in the soil. So in the spring, before we plant our next crop, we'll kill off the rye and it will decompose in the field, and those nutrients will help us grow our next crop. So one of the things that we use our corn for is we actually turn it to animal feed for our pigs here. So we'll grind the corn kernels into a powder, and we'll add ground up soybeans and vitamins and minerals and feed it to our pigs. The rest of the corn we actually sell off to the market, and it's going to be sold and made into the other things that we talked about. The sweeteners, the starches, the ethanol, and things like that. So when my family is ready to sell our corn, we will load it into a semi-truck and take it to the grain elevator. And at the grain elevator, they're going to sell it to other markets that are going to make it into those other things that we talked about. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me on my family's farm. I hope you learned something new about corn and corn